SWOCBC, what are you doing here? This is a combat zone. It's restricted. Ease off on your main thruster and head over to patreon.com/SWOCBC for episodes of our all-new series, Inside the Insider, where the gang explores articles from every single issue of the official Star Wars Insider fan magazine in order and get an even closer look at how Star Wars and its fandom have evolved over the years. New episodes with each public upload months earlier for patrons. Red 24, Red 30, follow me to patreon.com/SWOCBC for the latest episode of SWOCBC. Inside the Insider today. In target range. It's ahead. All ships jump to light speed.
The Star Wars Old Canon Book Club is made possible by contributions on Patreon. Head to patreon.com/SWOCBC for ad-free episodes, reading guides, movie and TV episode audio watch-alongs, and more. Today's Old Canon fact of the day comes from Star Wars, the new essential guide to weapons and technology by W. Hayden Blackman, first published in 2004. The Gretchen is the Yuuzhan Vong's analog to the traditional missile or torpedo, bioengineered to destroy enemy vessels quickly and efficiently. The Gretchen resembles a large beetle-like insect with a narrow body and bulbous eyes, and is launched from nearly all manner of Yuuzhan Vong craft. Today's selection is a collection of Star Wars video games by Atari and Parker Brothers, released for both home consoles and the arcades between 1982 and 1985. For a live gameplay video, follow the link in the description to our official YouTube channel, or get the unedited version on Patreon. Enjoy the show, and may the Force be with you, always.
Do you think that there is a planet, Tatooine?
Why?
Is this the start of the episode?
Yeah, this is it. This is it. This is what I'm going with
Do you
today.
think there's a planet called Tatooine?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Tatooine?
Why?
It's funny.
Oh,
You think
There's
that's where Jabba
definitely-
the Hutt's from?
no.
No?
Here's
he
the
not
question you
from-
should be asking. When do you include the N? Because there's Tatooine, but there's also Dantooine.
Okay, yeah. Like Antuine versus Atuine.
Versus Fantooine versus Fatooine.
Saying Atuine just now makes me feel like there's some sort of Earth, because Atuine is something, right?
In what?
I don't know. What do you think I am, a museum? I don't know. I'm a
whatever it
stoner.
is,
I'm walking around with vague whispers of ideas and memories in my head. I didn't even finish college. I started a podcast about Star Wars instead.
I mean, that works. Yeah.
Guys, and you know what? This isn't even about a book today. Guys, welcome to SWOCBC.
The nerdiest episode.
This is a
To
weird.
date.
This is a weird one. This one, I don't know how long this is going to be. We're going to see, because this is a totally different thing. And the weird thing about it is every episode like this is going to be like totally different.
A different vibe, yeah.
Totally different. We're doing our first video game episode. Enough video games have come out in the timeline, because video games have been coming out for years. If you want to know what I mean. Like,
What is a video game, Alex?
well, what I mean is just in terms of how our little mission is going, right?
These newfangled devices the kids are playing.
Yeah. Like, we've been playing everything in order, right?
Yes.
We've been reading.
yeah.
We've been reading and watching everything in the exact order that it came out for the most part. We have made
We
one.
like collect the comics.
That's what I was
when
going to
they
say.
hit
We've
stuff,
made
yeah.
one sort of conceit for the comics, which is that we read these collected editions that sort of span a fairly large chunk of time rather than the smaller chunks of time between the individual books. But the video games, it's a different beast altogether, because depending on what year the video game is from, some of these games we're going to, because this is just like a new fork of the show that I want you guys to understand about also. Like, when we play video games on this show, like
Is it
today,
a new fork or is it a new tine?
Or new-
on the
a
fork?
tine
Or a
on the
branch.
fork. Yeah, a branch,
A
a fork, a tine.
branch on the fork of time.
A branch on the fork of time for this show. Another galaxy, another tine.
Another fork. Another branch.
This is
There is no spoon, just the fork.
the video game episodes.
Use the fork, Luke.
The video game
Exactly.
episodes are inconsistent because video games as a medium are a lot different. Like, it would be like if movies could come out that were like 5 minutes long and movies that could come out that were like 800 minutes long.
So what you're saying is this episode features games that technically are not very long. But in the future, we may play a game that's actually a real game.
Like you may get an entire episode about an entire game that we played all the way through and absorbed the story of. Like, and you might, be able to watch that. And so
Jedi Knight is a good example.
Yeah,
of
that's
a
coming
game.
up. Yeah, or Shadows of the Empire. Like that's one of the big games for us.
But those, I think we have to define that, yes, these are games, but in the modern sense, they're less video games as we know it with plot and story and different levels and stuff, and more like experiences.
Yeah, that's the thing. So in our normal,
Like, it's a game, but it doesn't have any of the things that modern gamers think of as game
It's
stuff.
weird because, like, I don't know, I've been alive long enough that they're games. Technology is bigger and better now.
Right,
So
yes.
it's like, in the video version, one of them, I think you talked about how they're basically like glorified Tiger Electronics, like LCD. Like, it's really, really simple what you could show and do, and it's about sort of just repeating that. And with the Atari games, what I didn't realize was there's the physical knobs and stuff to like change the programming in slight ways, which make difficulty and other stuff.
it makes perfect sense when you think about it. Like, and this is so funny because I just wanted to highlight the fact that we are all from like predominantly video game background. Like any reason that we have any notoriety today is like centered very largely around video games. But this audience, which is just people who signed up for a book club about Star Wars, may not have the context that we do and our normal audience does about video games. So I'm going to just take a second to like break this down a little bit more about what you were saying, Davis, because this is at the dawn of not video games where we're finding this. And this is 1982 to 1985, by the way, which is where our video game experiment has taken us. This time we're playing, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games altogether. And they're all arcade game ports or arcade game inspired, because the Atari being like the first sort of like popularly viral home console, right, before the first video game crash. At the time, Atari was the people that made Pong. They were the people that made the arcade scene happen first. And the console wasn't the concept of a console that I think Nintendo kind of landed on in 85, which we're going to get into probably next time we do a video game episode. But a sort of like home version of an arcade cabinet, right? So like, yeah, you have it go to your TV naturally, because like any arcade cabinet is a board attached to a TV, and there's like dip switches on an arcade board. And so on the actual console, there's like modes, because when you go play, you're not expecting to get immersed. You're not expecting to get taken into a story. It is 1970, whatever. Like the first game that we play is from 1982, and this is before the NES came out by 3 years.
I think the immersion thing, probably at the time, this is immersive.
Not in the same, you're not like getting
but-
wrapped up in it. Yeah.
Yeah, but story-wise, there's like, it's not about the story. It's about the experience of, one of the games is I'm a pilot. One of the games is I'm doing snowspeeder stuff. They're taking moments from the movie and giving you the ability to be there.
Yeah.
But that's it. There is nothing else beyond
Kind of
that.
like VR right now, actually. It's like if video games is a technology were as novel as VR is right now, where we're like, it's around, people know what it is, like lots of people that have some kind of VR thing, but all the experiences in VR, we're just starting to crest the point where real meaningful experiences are happening in VR. I feel like right now, like up until maybe like Half-Life Alyx is like the real first big, huge hit that I've seen that's like a story in VR. But like, it's the same thing where like it started off just being like, hey, if you pay $20, you can like climb a rock face.
Get attacked by a shark. Thanks, Sony.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my god, the
That
worst one
sucked.
was the Resident Evil 7. Do you remember there was
She
an
crawled out in the kitchen and attacked you?
That was
not cool.
That was the scariest demo at E3 that I've ever done, and I did it maybe 10 minutes before Steven Spielberg did, so I feel pretty cool about that.
I think like it, just with anything, like how they monetize, affects how it goes. So like it's an arcade. They want you to like turn over those coins. So yeah, instead of it being what a lot of games are now, where they're like immersive, you like stretch your legs into it. It's many hours. That's the value. It's like exciting, flashing lights, big like attention grabbing stuff for short bits of gameplay.
Yeah. And you see that kind of like if you go over to NES, that era, Master System, that era, like or what's the other one? I'm just gonna stick with those for now.
Turbo graphics.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Nobody cares. This is not an enthusiast podcast. This is just like those games. You even see that. Like if you look at games like Excite Bike or even like Zelda, the original Zelda, they have the similar sort of like idea of the dip switches on the board where you can go, oh, I finished the game. And you know, in Zelda, you get the second quest, and it's like B mode, basically. It's like inspired by a B mode. In another way, right? Zelda's like a game that very much creates a world, and you are a person, and a narrative unfolds, which is like really different from how video games were in the previous generation. But
there's also save features and
right,
things. Yeah.
Right. But like that idea of being like, oh, let's do like a mix up, a harder version. You can still see it in like Dark Souls today when they do their sort of like Game of the Year, where they put out the version that has the DLC on it, and even the original game. They like mix up the enemy placements. That is still all going back to these like experience-based game experiences that were on the Atari. And so on the one hand, you can think about it as bringing the arcade home, which it is on one hand, and Jesse's absolutely right. On the other hand, it's like, imagine if you could be. And one of the games we didn't get to play was, maybe I'll start with that one first, which came out in July. The first two games that we played both came out in July of 1982. The first one was Empire Strikes Back. Which was pretty sick.
Also crazy that's the first game is the second movie.
Right. It's just because it lined up with like the birth of the games industry or whatever. And Return of the Jedi wasn't quite out yet. But the other game that we didn't get to play because, again, there's no standardization yet for video games. So even in trying to emulate them, like the type of, if you know what a paddle is for an Atari, it's like a knob, like a volume knob where you turn
like
it.
A giant
like
volume.
A big
it's ridiculous.
Palm-sized volume knob, which you still sometimes see in arcades today if they got an old copy of like Ikari Warriors or some shit like that.
Yeah.
But like that is so not a thing that happened in video games.
That's because you were just going right left.
Yeah, because the game though was designed about waving a lightsaber around. And it was two people playing.
Oh, so it's like they're using the Pong mechanic, but it's lightsabers.
Yeah.
The play date is like has brought it back in a weird way by having
the little
a
turn
crank.
thing?
The Playdate is a niche like hipster Game Boy
absolutely.
with a crank on the side.
And then they had on the DS an add-on, but I don't think in any other console console has there been a like
not official ones. Like every once in a while something comes out that has the functionality.
They probably have those like you could get them at like Target where it just plugs in and it gives you like one.
Atari has a new like young CEO and they've been kind of like rolling out stuff like that. But
hilariously, a lot of the horror games we play in game have some kind of system like this where you get to re-experience that style of gameplay. Or if it's like I have to get the radar working and you're like turning the knob in the game,
it would be kind of useful to like it's kind of like a mouse wheel. Like I feel like you could kind of map it to a mouse wheel. Like if you were trying to play Atari, if we were trying to do that lightsaber game, I feel like we could do it with two mouse wheels. But the point is, you both wave the lightsaber around, and the remote from the Millennium Falcon that Luke trains with his blast shield down in the first movie, like is rolling between you and the
lightsaber Pong, basically.
So no, it's going between you, and it attacks you. But it attacks at the angle of your opponent's lightsaber, and so your lightsaber is pretty much only there to defend yourself from the remote.
And then it bounces. The ball goes to the other guy after
the
you
ball
block
is
it.
The ball is just there in the middle, and it fires at both of you each time. But you
interesting.
So it's like this kind of push and pull, but you have to do it with the turns. We didn't really get to play that one just because there was no functional way for us to play it that didn't require.
Forgive us, okay?
Like, I would have had to buy like a bunch of equipment, and I didn't really want to do that.
That's the honest assessment. Yeah.
Yeah. But we did all the other ones. So we did The Empire Strikes Back. That was the first game that we played that was like truly functional in the way that it meant to be played.
Honestly, a solid start.
Yeah, it's like a side-scrolling game about. And you know what? Before we get into this, I should say, if you want to watch us play these games, as we are professional, excellent Let's Players by trade, You can go watch us. It sounds like shit. It sounds like shit, but it's true. If I'm not an expert at this, but after doing it for this fucking long, like who is? Who is? I've been around longer than Game Grumps. Kill me.
Don't do that. We need him.
We do. You can see every moment of us playing every game. It's like a watch along. You can go on the Patreon and do that. And if not, if you're not a patron, you can come see like a best of sort of like super clip show
Over on the YouTube.
on the old YouTubies. So go check it out. It's tight, and let's talk about it. So everybody can kind of get a taste at least of every game. Yep. So Empire Strikes Back is the first, and it's like the first in a tradition, I think, of games that saw the first scene of Empire Strikes Back and decided that was a video game that could be called Empire Strikes Back.
It's really just Battle of Hoth.
Yeah, it's the Battle of Hoth from the side. Really, like, we kind of were playing it at first and didn't really understand what we were doing. It's obvious that you're supposed to fly around and blow up the walkers that are like walking towards the base. They're walking left to right, and you're going right to left.
Didn't read, like, back in the day, you always read the instruction manual.
That's
when
where
you
that's
like
where the
play
juice
games.
was. Yeah,
and
that's where the story
and the
was.
instruction
Yeah.
manuals when we read it were like, here's everything you need to know about everything and how it works.
And they give like
Tips
little
and-
like they flavor it up. They're like, if you fly down to the bottom of the like crevasse,
That's where you can heal.
Yeah,
we did not know that going in for
your
the first little bit.
Your pilot will hop out and repair. You know, it's like kind of more fun to read the instruction manual. It reminds me of if you ever watched. Do you guys watch Game Center CX?
I watched it at your house.
I mean, yeah,
with you.
because of you.
Oh yeah, okay. So this game, it's like Top Gear. The show Game Center CX is like Top Gear, except it's about video games, and there's only one guy, and he like plays video games that are old, right? And he's Japanese. It's a fully Japanese show. It has subtitles, and he like breaks out the instructions in games that I've played 1,000 times. Games like, Castlevania, Mega Man, games that I like feel like I know backwards and forwards. And every fucking time that he does, I don't just like gain a deeper like appreciation for the game. I like learn shit that I did not know about the scoring system. I'll learn some like level skip. I'll learn some crazy thing, and it's just in the instructions. In this, I feel like at one point, there was a line drawn from video games to books through the instruction manual that just got like so much degraded over time as games themselves sort of like took over the storytelling, and tutorial duties and social networking duties.
I mean, I buy and have bought games predominantly digitally as early as that became feasible. So there's no, I mean, I guess you can get digital versions, but when I was young, especially before I could drive, go to like the Funkoland or wherever, get your game, and then like I would sit and I would like on the drive back read the manual and like dream.
Well, you want to know something sad? Just along these lines. So I've been like, Davis, I don't know if we said it on mic or not, but we've been kind of like on this like, me especially, I've decided like it's not going to be a good time money-wise, right? And there's like the hype machine always sucks. But nowadays is an especially bad time to be on the hype machine as a gamer, because shit is about to be like, this was recorded like a day after like Xbox is like raising game prices to $80 and console prices are going up. So I've been kind of like on this sort of like wizard journey of like going into my boxes, performing maintenance on my old consoles, getting them up and running, like putting games on there, getting them all set, like using new technology to sort of like augment old things. I got my Vita up and running. I've got all this stuff up and running. One thing that is standard across like the Vita, the 3DS, I think. I'm not 100 on the 3DS, but I think so. PS3, Wii U, all these consoles, is that all the games, even like when I was playing Metroid Zero Mission on my Wii U gamepad last night. Like, fuck off. I'm cool as hell. You can
that is a cool way to play that game.
Yeah.
And that game is just rad.
But there's a little question mark in the bottom left corner, and when you touch it, a 100% HD scan of the entire manual pops up in front of your face. And we don't even have that. Like, these games are on fucking Switch, which has infinitely more memory and shit than the Wii U. And like the Wii U had like I think like an 8 gigabyte card in the original one, or 32 gigs. Like all these
At
games.
a time when that was not even good at the time.
Yeah.
That was like
that was a bummer at the time. That was 10 years ago. But like, yeah, we're losing that sort of connection.
I genuinely wonder, based on what you're, how you would have to these old games, read the manual, get these instructions. There must be a YouTube video or something that exists out there talking about the idea that rather than have manuals, game companies, developers decided to just train players
In the game.
over time, so that now when we see yellow on a cliff, we know that's where to climb.
Right.
Or when there's certain things that trigger in the brain that oh, this is how you do, oh, we're dodging this, or this is how you parry this, or oh, I got to look for there's things that players look for now that I think
Yeah, it's like a language of, it's like
in the 80s they had to spell it out, and now it's kind of built into systems.
there's also I think a cultural thing because
sure.
Americans, for whatever reason, and I think it goes beyond just video games, we don't read instruction manuals. Whereas, when I buy Japanese products, they are, the most beautiful instructions, and it seems like that is a big part of you
Not
get
only
it.
do they
You,
read it, yeah.
download in your brain, you, read through it, you get all the information, then you engage with the product.
You refer back to it.
There's so
remember-
many things that I fuck up for so long, and then I read the instruction manual, and I'm like, I should have just done this day one.
I feel like a really great example of that is the fact that during the late 90s, early 2000s, most media featured men who did not ever use instructions and then were mocked for not using
I'm
it.
the tool time
Yeah,
Taylor.
yeah.
It probably is responsible.
Yeah, so I guess that's, you're 100% right. I feel like it's definitely, instructions, why read them? So then eventually they barely were in the box.
Yeah.
And then the box came with nothing. And then the box barely came with a game.
The box has holes in it so that it can be less plastic.
Yeah.
And sometimes you buy the collector's edition and it comes with a piece of paper instead of the game.
Yeah, and the piece of paper is an ad for another game.
Yeah. So all that to say that so far, going back and doing this as a sociological, anthropological experiment, the instruction manual seems to be part of the experience, part and parcel right now. A bunch of the Star Warsiness of this came from the instruction manual, enabling our imagination to play and use the game's mechanics as imagination fodder, right? Really, the game is just about pressing A at the right time, and you can spam A to bring down the health of the walkers, but there's little weak points that show up, and you can kind of put that together just by looking at the game, like you're saying, common language evolving, right? But for the most part, it doesn't, if you didn't know that it was Star Wars, other than unless you really recognize AT-ATs.
I mean, the AT-AT silhouette is really recognizable.
Yeah, it's true. But even you don't need to know what Star Wars is to
They
enjoy
could
the
have
game.
remapped stuff and made it
Yeah.
some kind of fighter game. And it would be the exact same thing.
But by putting it in that Star Wars wrapper with the words in the manual, it became, you start to feel I'm landing my snow speeder in the snow in an ice crevice, and I'm getting out of my ship and fixing it really quick, and they're marching through the snow on this other level, just by naming it stuff, just by saying, oh, this color means this means this. It's like a dungeon master a little bit. It's giving you ground rules for your playtime. And we're still at that point where everything's representational. So I really like that game.
Also, they really nail the feel. Some games, older games, you go back and play and you're like, this ain't it, Chief. It just doesn't have the modern
We
sensibilities.
have a few of those coming up, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
but I don't know how I would improve the flight. When you got going, it felt
was
like
fast.
you were flying.
Yeah.
You
It was
were
pretty
moving
exhilarating.
at one point, yeah.
Yeah, because I saw Davis doing some cool patterns, so I was like, what if the plan is instead to just go as fast as you can, shoot, just like in the movie, you're moving, you're shooting, and if you take a guy down, awesome, if not, you keep moving. And it's cool, except they still keep walking towards the damn power generators. So, also it kind of made me feel oh no, I get why the Rebels lost. This really is a losing fight. It was, for what it was, definitely top 3 that we played.
Oh, man.
It's pretty good.
I would say, I would legitimately, if you have the patience, if you're not one of those kids who, can't watch The Artist because it's black and white and that makes you go to sleep, if you can, overcome that impulse in yourself, child, or, I don't know, peer who has no patience for stuff from 60 years ago, 50 years ago, 40 years ago, 43 years ago.
80s? Yeah, 40-something.
Whatever. If you're, it's not even as good as Nintendo. So if you're gonna have a problem with that,
True, it's not Nintendo. That's right.
it's not even as good as NES. But if you're gonna have a problem with that, don't do it. But I think that Empire Strikes Back is one of the funnest games I've ever played on Atari. Even I would say.
For an Atari game, absolutely.
Yeah,
like video game wise, Atari, yes.
There's like 10 or 12 that are above it that I could start listing off. But I would say that it's up there.
Video game Crash Atari, 100.
Yeah. Like on the
100%.
2600. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like pretty gorgeous. Like it's not overly complex, but it nails it. It
The
has
color
that
palettes
like
are interesting.
it has the comic color palette kind of.
The fact that you can make your walkers magenta by shooting them enough times.
Yeah. It has like
Love it.
pink. It's like blue, light blue, and pink. It's like blue that's almost white. Like a slightly darker blue and pink, which feels snowy and
Easter Star
sunset.
Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is kind of funny that we were also trained on damage. Like, this does not have the color damage you think it does.
Yeah.
And at some point, I don't know when, because I can think all the way back to the Ninja Turtles games and the arcades, all those things where it's like, it goes normal color, then slightly yellowish, then
Orange,
red, then
yeah.
flashing red.
Yeah.
And that's like, oh, and then they're dead.
Like that dude from the Simpsons arcade or
it's
whatever.
like-
yeah.
They start flashing, going crazy, and you're like, oh, I almost beat it. And you were trained to think that. And they keep using that for years and years and years. This same concept, vastly different colors.
You know why I think? Because I think we're still in the era when a lot of TVs can't display color.
Absolutely. You're probably right.
I think because man, like the colors are really number
If
one.
we had tried that in black
Wait,
and white, I
it's like-
wonder what would have happened. Yeah.
TV colors, the amount of colors that the system itself can even do, and then it has to match the background or stand out from the background.
we were playing on Mr. FPGA, which is like a really nice sort of way to emulate old runtime environments, game console environments. And I did flip it into black and white briefly. You know, we saw it, and it looks there's
the
nothing-
noir.
Nothing
cut.
is nothing is lost.
Dude.
Nothing is lost in the black and white version. You can still see everything, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. I remember. I think people forget. Like, I remember being a little kid in the 80s, and we had a black and white. Like, there wasn't a color TV in the house. We had a black and white TV because it was cheap and you could afford it.
Yeah.
And my parents were like teachers, right?
normal, yeah.
So, and it wasn't until the end of the 80s that suddenly we had like, oh no, this is an affordable color TV. Like, I remember being a little kid watching things that were,
The craziest,
It's like HDTV.
we
It
had
took a long
we
time.
had color TVs around the house, but I think my mom had a like small kitchen TV.
Yeah.
that was black and white.
Yeah, big time. Like
Those are so cool.
I used to have a
damn.
black and white TV/radio/cassette player in my bedroom. I thought it was the coolest. I got 4 channels on that thing. I'd watch Conan O'Brien at night, even into like the 90s. I would do that.
we were watching like WrestleMania or like what's the one that used to come on during the week?
WCW?
SmackDown, maybe. I can't remember. We were watching it like in the bushes one time with one of those old little shitty portable TVs
That's what I had. I love those
on
things.
UPN or whatever it was. Yeah.
Yeah. I had that until I went off to college. Like, it was the TV I had because I was like, well, I don't need a big TV. And then, then I was in college and I was like, I can't use my parents' TV to play video games on, so I got to like man up and get a real one.
Yeah. So then, like, the next game we played is in as many ways that, in my opinion, in as many ways that Empire Strikes Back for Atari 2600 just highlights how far video games have come at home. I feel like this next one, which is Star Wars the arcade game, came out May 5th, 1983. Missed the perfect opportunity by one day. Came out May 5th, 1983. Might have been the Return of the Jedi release date or something like that. I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly what day that was, but
They definitely came out in May, if I recall.
83, yeah. And so this is Star Wars the arcade game, which maybe second place. I don't know which. There should
Honestly-
be. I don't know which one has more. I don't know which one there's more games based on. The Battle of Hoth or the Trench Run.
The Hoth was my favorite of these now, only because I get motion sick because I shouldn't be alive. I'm diabetic, you know. Every day is again a blessing. And I'm just slowly falling apart.
He's
but,
type 1, ladies.
That game like nails like it is sick. It's
That's what I was
tight.
gonna say. Is like this game came out in 1983, and like other than like improvements to the graphics, like there is not much better that arcade games have gotten.
Yeah.
You know, in our lifetimes, I think, than what we're seeing.
It was the experience. You felt like, compared to it, we'd play another one very similar to this later.
Yeah.
Compared to that one, this is actually really well done.
Yeah.
And it's basic as shit. It is it does not
This is an arcade game. It's a vector arcade game, so it's
Yeah.
got really interesting technology for the graphics display.
But it has the same kind of vibe that you can imagine if Nintendo did it for the Virtual Boy.
Yeah.
It feels just like that.
Yeah. This was interesting. We had to emulate this, obviously, because you literally need a special display to properly display vector graphics. Have you ever had a Vectrex at home when you were young? If you're old, you might know what I'm talking about.
That's sort of a whole rabbit hole for me.
Well, okay. I'm trying to think of other games that are
Luckily,
vector.
I have not ordered a Vectrex,
Warzone
but I'm
or-
very curious about trying to get my hands on
like Asteroids,
one
I think.
That'd be
is
a hell of a thing to have.
I think Asteroids is a pretty popular vector game. If you know Asteroids, if you've seen a real Asteroids machine and you know how bright and not flickery,
Those like green lines and stuff.
it's
yeah.
like light. It's like not of. It's
Is
not,
that the screens that they use in like sci-fi movies from that era that don't have like the waves? They
I think
have
they're
like
supposed
the
to
bright.
look. I think they're supposed to look like vector because genuinely, I can't express this. It's not like frames. Like it's like different. It's like it has like a different way of conveying the information. It's like flat images.
and it honestly
Even like the Rebels technology
Yes,
is like
yes.
imitating that. Just
yeah, I
they
think
don't
at the
do it
time
live.
it more than what video game, like the pixel graphics, it actually looked like future tech.
It looked like probably a little bit more like a 3D space and like, you know how like 120 hertz or like 240 hertz looks just like it's happening in front of your eyes? The vector displays were on another level of like that type of shit compared to the like, even in the emulation of the Atari, there was like fucking screen flickering happening because that was actually emulating the hardware. MAME cannot do a vector display. You can't to simulate it, you would have to have a really nice monitor and a really nice graphics card, I think. And I think we're only barely starting to get to a place where it could look like vector. But I think sitting down playing that game in 1983 probably felt exactly like going in VR. Like it must have been unbelievable.
Yeah.
This was 2 years before Super Mario Brothers. 2 years before Mario Brothers.
Question. Mario Brothers, the like arcade? Or Mario Brothers Nintendo?
Like, well,
Because remember they had it was like the arcade one.
Or
yeah,
you
the
just in
Mario Bros.
sewers?
arcade
Yeah,
was a
or was
little
that just
earlier.
Mario Brothers? Because that
Same
wasn't
year.
Super.
Same year. Wow. Same year. So that's what Nintendo was doing in the
And
arcades.
this is the home version.
No.
that we played.
We played both. We played the arcade version first, which was fantastic.
And then the shitty home
And then
version.
the
All
home
right,
version
all right,
was
all right. Not pleasant.
I like. It came out a little later. We can talk about that. It came out the next. We
Might as well
played
combine
that.
them.
Yeah, we played that instead of Jedi Arena. And it came out a little later, but it is the same exact experience. Wireframe, green and red, lasers. You go down the trench run, you shoot things that come out of the ground. I don't think that if you did not play the real one, the arcade one, that you would recognize it. What was happening in front of your eyes in the
It reminded me
2600
like
version.
there was a time when like arcades were the machines and the home console was just like a facsimile, and then at some point home consoles blew past
until
like, the
Dreamcast.
fidelity.
Until Dreamcast, I would say.
Yeah.
Maybe PS2 was maybe the first console that like low key looked as good, if not better, than the arcades like right away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The difference is huge.
It's crazy. Yeah. But like at this time, you'll see when at the end of this, when we play Return of the Jedi, which was at the same basic time, like totally different vibe than the Star Wars arcade game.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a trench run game. It's really fun. Like it's got like sort of like on loop when you play it. So it's literally just the trench run over and over, and it makes it harder as you go.
Every like Rogue Squadron and everything else is like this.
Yeah.
It's from
Now.
it's from
it basically
inside
is what
the cockpit.
the movie looks like. Like it's just they nailed
This had
the vibe.
sit down cabinets. Like space is black. This is pretty good.
It just gives you the experience that you want. You want to be part of Red Squad and you want to fly in there and just be Luke for a hot minute. And it does that. It
even
gives
has-
you exactly the experience.
It even has these like extremely bit crushed sort of like audio samples. I think yeah, it sounds like the only
Great jacket.
the only that sounded pretty good. The only analog for it that kids today have is like those Five Nights at Freddy's like interstitials where the secrets happen.
Oh, sure.
They kind of
sure.
look like
Yes.
look like
That's
Atari.
really funny, yeah,
They
yeah.
kind of look like Atari, or actually, perfect example is fucking Faith. It sounds exactly like that.
Yeah.
Faith is like Atari
More
graphics,
Ds.
but with like really like arcade quality audio, kind
Right,
of.
right.
It's like postmodern. This is like where that comes from. It's like
Great God, kid.
and it's like supposed to be actually Han Solo talking. You can like kind of hear that it really is Harrison Ford, but it's like
So bit crushed.
it's unrecognizable almost.
Yeah.
Doesn't. Really fucking cool. I mean, it has like these things where like the towers raise out of the ground as you're coming to it. It has like perspective in the way that it's drawing the polygons. It's using the vectors to draw polygons, which is not what Asteroids does.
It makes you feel like you're going over a sphere.
Yeah, it distorts the shapes just a little to make it look like you're moving through space.
Which hilariously does not work in the console version.
yeah.
Well, and then in the
Also, they can't
sequel,
display all the lines at once.
or it wasn't even the sequel. I guess it's an add-on pack, but in the Empire Strikes Back one,
It's a kit, yeah.
They do more of that, and that's when it got
A little
like-
complicated.
heffalumps and
much.
woozles and
Yeah. Still
Crazy.
cool. I mean, I would say
But
that
like
the
before that's done, you know, like that's then learning how to do that kind of stuff.
right.
So it's still cool.
And I would say the Empire Strikes Back one is even a little funner than the Trench Run one.
They have like
more to do. There's more to do. Yeah.
objectives and other things like
The hyper critique I will say about all of it is its inverted controls.
Well, if we had a joystick, which is what you're supposed to play it with, it would
We probably wouldn't find, sure. But doing that on a controller,
nightmare.
like watching, I must stress, if anyone is watching the video version of this game,
yeah,
we're trying hard to shoot those things.
yeah. The War of Inverted.
They're
ended,
just,
and this was before that. Yeah,
yeah. Plus, the controller just moves insanely fast.
'Cause
Like
the
being able to
joystick-
lock
yeah.
onto things, there definitely isn't the modern, if you point it towards their head, it'll definitely hit them in the head.
the head or their
vibe.
crotch. Yeah. Well, because it's like also a joystick again. Like when you let go of a joystick, it goes right back to the middle, and you can kind of like it's like a steering wheel where you like hold it where it goes. And like yes, like a thumbstick is kind of similar to that, but you don't really move. Like you grab a joystick around and like
Yank.
yang it around in different directions, whereas a thumbstick just doesn't have that same kind of like. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah, if you push right on the thumbstick, you go right.
The sensitivity is much higher than it would
Yeah.
be for a joystick. So it's like kind of interesting in that way. But the
I
game
wonder how a game like Star Fox 64 with a joystick
Probably
would
be
play.
the greatest experience you've ever played.
it
in
would
your
probably
life.
be so fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. You probably have to tweak the controls a bit, but it's like super cool.
I wonder if
you
at
can
the
play that whole
time
game in the cockpit too.
I know.
Yeah.
Like that game is basically a Star Wars game.
it's basically a vector game, kind of. It's that time period.
It's the Star Fox game is like
It
the
has,
next
like-
evolution. It's exactly
yeah,
the same.
it
It's
has
exactly
the
the same
makings,
thing.
yeah.
They're just using real polygons, whereas in the vector version they use colored lines to represent the polygons.
but they're not there yet.
Everything is wire matrix because it's a black screen showing points of light. So it's kind of more like Doom. It's like by way of Doom doing 3D similarly, but the display is a vector screen instead. Really, I really can't explain this to you unless you've seen it in your life before. But it's just such a ancient technology.
Again, imagine Star Fox. Take away all the color, make everything green lines.
Green lines and red lines.
Yeah, and that's it's the same thing.
Really fun. Anyway, that's the Star Wars arcade game. The other ones that we did were Return of the Jedi Death Star Battle, which was back on Atari, which was like definitely like similar in like mentality to the like this one was interesting.
We fucked up by having it on like the hardest difficulty right up front. Like there was something in the beginning.
We figured it out,
That
yeah.
was like it was like unplayable.
It's because the
And then
switches.
and then it was like
switches were backwards. You'd think that the easier one would be
like a lower number. or
the
something.
lower one, but it was like the alternate one was the easy one or something. But like
I'm sure all that makes perfect sense to an engineer.
if you were just sitting there,
But if you're just like as a regular person, you're like,
if you were just sitting there looking at it with the instruction manuals and everything was a dip switch on the console, it wouldn't be confusing.
yeah.
But that's the thing was we're trying to do this in 2025, which is a very different situation. But the thing that's kind of interesting about that game for me was that like the same mentality happened where it was like the Empire Strikes Back game, it's just you're doing one thing the whole time, right? That's kind of like,
It's like, yeah.
how most video games were, right? One, like Pac-Man, you just basically go into mazes, right? So that's what Empire Strikes Back was. But the Star Wars arcade game kind of blew everybody's mind because first you approach the Death Star from space and you can kind of direct yourself around, and then you get in the trench and then you like shoot the thing. There's like all these different like phases.
Yeah.
And I feel like playing the arcade, like, I don't want to talk too much about the Atari version of the arcade game, other than to say that it sucked ass and was and that it was and it was unplayable, and like it couldn't even show all the lines at once. So like things were flashing as we were playing it.
Sure.
Which is just, it was probably
Again,
fine in
this
the 70s.
game has the same problem. The flashing.
Yeah.
I was like, guys, is this just the like what? And you were just like, no, this is the game.
Yeah, but
this
that said, they took the notion of a multi-stage assault on the Death Star,
Yes, yeah.
and applied it to like a 2D game. So you start and you're outside the shield, and there's like this one game you play where you're trying to like get past the shields or get the shields to open so that you can go in.
While at the same time, and one of the suckiest things I've ever seen. Poor Davis, you had to suffer at the beginning of this. Literally, everything is not just trying to kill you, crash into you.
Yeah, there's just not enough.
Every TIE fighter is slamming. You died so much to TIE fighters
comes
hitting you.
They come in so quickly that it's like,
Plus,
I
they
don't know
blink.
how you're supposed to dodge these unless you've like studied.
Well, we found out that you were playing on like God mode or some
Yeah.
shit, like some unholy mode. Yeah.
And plus, they had that, like, again, the blinking. So they'd be in one part of the screen, and then suddenly you're just hit by them, and you're like, what? I didn't even see them coming.
If you had an NES, you kind of know what we're talking about, where like certain games kind of just like push the console to the apex of what it could do. Like if you had Mario 3, you know what happened on the left side of the screen. You know that.
Sure. Yeah.
You know some shit was going on and it was getting a little weird.
Yeah.
That's how it is with Atari. It's just a lot more in general, just because it was like something that was made in the 70s. But yeah, like I think at the time, like playing it on easy, it would have been acceptable. And then only after mastering it on easy should you ever try the harder things. But
Even
yeah.
easy wasn't. I think we beat it one time.
Yeah, we got to the end, but it took all of our.
Yeah, and the point of the game is to just keep going. It gets harder and harder, and you die eventually. Like it's your score,
exactly.
So
And in that one was like you start outside of it and you go into it, and like you fight guys off until there's an opening in the shield, and then you can go through because you're the Falcon. And then you get to the Death Star, and there's like this kind of like reverse sort of centipede thing going on where
the Death Star is repairing itself. It's like under construction, like in the movie.
but you shoot through
there
it
really
like
are
Centipede.
a lot of cool little bits to this.
You know how like Centipede has the mushrooms that you shoot through so that you can like shoot through the mushrooms?
You're
to
doing the
shoot
same
up?
thing
Yeah.
to the Death Star.
Yeah.
At the same time, the Death Star has other ships trying to get you, and it's super laser.
The idea of just like someone parked outside the Death Star just shooting their way
goofy as
through is
hell, yeah.
hilarious.
Like people just like
And the Death Star beam like moves around outside of it.
the Death Star beam just starts like sniping the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah.
Extreme waste of resources. But that said, I would say it's not quite as clean as the Empire Strikes Back game, but I would say it's an impressive and fun video game, which Harlan Ellison called the worst thing he's ever seen or some shit like that. And it's funny because when we were playing the games, we were talking about Harlan Ellison because we read like a Harlan Ellison review of one of the games. Like 1 week later, I Have No Mouth, But I Must Scream came out on PS5.
Yep.
What's up with that? That's
Honestly,
synchronicity.
pick it up.
That's synchronicity.
Wild game.
Yeah. If you're not old and you already know how good that is,
Get that game.
you should pick that one up. It'll change your life. It'll change your life. We kind of talked about the Empire Strikes Back game as like a sort of like okay, so background, first of all, you got to understand the context of this. You had to buy an arcade cabinet. That's like buying a car, right? It's like a big thing that you have to deal with. If you're like a bar or you're like a bowling alley, like you don't buy that many. You buy like 10 in like over years, right? So, you know, it's a big commitment to buy an arcade cabinet.
And they break all the time.
Yeah. And so you have people come out to repair them and stuff, and they cost, you know, they usually pay back their initial cost after a while, you know, depending on what business you are and how many people there play video games. But like eventually it starts to have diminishing returns because it's taking up space. You know, other places that are buying newer games are going to like have more exciting games because the tech is more interesting. So you got to be able to, you know, kind of make your purchase extend a little bit. So a lot of arcade companies would say, hey, do you have this game? If so, here is another game that runs on that same hardware that you can like install as a little kit. They're called conversion kits. And you could buy that instead of buying an entire new, basically, they're called cabinets, but they really are like a closet that moves on wheels, right? And instead of, you get a brand new video game, kind of, without all the upfront investment. So Empire Strikes Back came out actually after the Return of the Jedi arcade game, but I want to talk about it first because it's kind of like, even more than the sequel to it, you morph it into it. So it's like kind of interesting. Like Radar Scope, the Nintendo arcade game, Donkey Kong was actually a conversion kit of Radar Scope because they had all these Radar Scope machines that didn't sell. And so they were like, what the fuck are we going to do with this? So Miyamoto was like, I have an idea. And converted them all into Donkey Kong machines. Anyway, that might be like apocryphal. I don't know, but I'm not an expert, but I am an expert Let's Player.
Like Miss Pac-Man, were those ones?
Miss Pac-Man
were those
was,
all like conversions?
So
or those
Miss Pac-Man was a little different. Miss Pac-Man was a fan game that like got picked up by Midway. So it's not actually from the same lineage as like the other Pac-Man games. Okay. It was like somebody took Pac-Man 1 and kind of like cleaned up some of its like user experience issues according to them. It's like a fan game, but then it got so popular and they started making kits themselves, which, because it was still the Wild West, that like the company came in and was like, all right, we're not going to destroy you, but we own it now.
Right.
Yeah. So that's how arcades were. Empire Strikes Back is like, again, like an arcade quality first person version of the Battle of Hoth. This time you have your bullets, but also a tow cable that you can fire at the legs, which takes out the AT-ATs right away, or you can like precisely nail their shiny.
What are those, like a bolo? Is that what those things are? Where you shoot
the
like
tow
spins?
cables? The tow cables, yeah, they don't really work like the tow cables in the movie where you have to go around. They are straight up like Zorro's bolos. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, and again they do the stage thing, which like stage 1 is you have to shoot the droids.
Yeah.
And then stage 2 you're fighting against the walkers.
Yeah.
And like that's neat.
And then stage 3 is the escape. Yeah.
And like that's cool. I think David's probably I remember you doing the best out of all of us, but like that was a game that I did not. There was so much
It was so
going
complicated,
on,
yeah.
I could not gel with that at all. I just couldn't grok any of it.
Going back to Star Fox as an example, though, I will say, like, the first one, I know the space field is, like, supposedly pretty open, but it kind of felt like it was kind of pulling you in one direction because there's not any landmarks or horizon anywhere. The fun difference, like, if you play Star Fox 64, there's a part where they go into all range mode sometimes where they fight bosses where they can, like, 360 fly around them. Because most of Star Fox is like a tunnel that you fly through.
Shout out to the Independence Day level. That's the best level.
Yes, with Bill.
Period. I love it. So
oh my
good.
God, dude, they're opening the spaceship. But, like, it's like, Bill, you're my friend. We're going to beat these aliens. And then he's like, they got me, and like a wrench shows up on his face, and you're like, I can't believe I lost my friend Bill. Doesn't matter. Bill Pullman, Bill Paxton, Bill. No, there's no Bills in Independence
Yeah, he was
Day.
the president.
Bill Pullman is the
yes!
president.
Yes, I'm right. Okay. Anyway, I think that's a reference to him. The point is, the 3D scenes, including the Independence Day level, actually, are like slightly different than the tunnel levels, and I feel like the Hoth level in the Empire Strikes Back arcade game gave a more realistic sense of 3D space where you could really feel like, oh, the walker just was behind me now, and now it's over here behind me, and I can
because you're going between legs.
and I can
you
turn
can hit 'em.
around. Yeah, like that to me was like a very big sort of like sensory improvement over the first Star Wars arcade cabinet game. Other than that, I feel like maybe I would prefer to play the first one just because it's a little bit more streamlined and simple, and that this one is sort of defined by its what else can we do with this format?
Yes, I definitely think like
Less pure.
If during the heyday though, we would have been so ready for it because as big of nerds of Star Wars as we were, like we would have just played that game to death and then been ready for the next thing.
And all you had to do at the time, and this is so different from today, all you had to do at the time was like go to the fucking bar again, the same one you always go to. Like if I was like, dude, come on, the Star Wars arcade cabinet turned into an Empire Strikes Back one and now you can go on Hoth. You're like, what? We're going to go check that out right away because it costs fucking 50 cents to fucking play the game instead of like $80.
The big difference, I think, is, you know what? There is no difference. I was just thinking about this. The fact that they released the Star Wars, you'd sit in kind of like a ball
Yeah, the one that blows on your face. Yeah.
Yeah, and you do Hoth, you do the trench run, you do the speeder bikes on Endor, you'd fight Vader with the lightsabers, and it was all one game. But if you break out of that, each one of them is just a glorified version of the stuff we just played.
It's like like arcade games have not progressed farther than the Star Wars.
It just
arcade
looks
game.
better.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. There was a time period where they started to get more like story-ish. But then that all became home console.
Yeah.
So now arcade games again are literally just experiences.
Yeah, they had
that
games
you can
there was
play
like-
while probably drinking.
There's like your Striders, your Rygars, things that had a plot, but yeah, those went away real quick.
They have to like thread the needle of like how fun they are while also turning over pretty quickly.
Right.
So
exactly.
And like light gun games, those are like sort of infinitely like
A cheaper version.
fun.
They're like a cheaper version almost of the Star Wars arcade game, kind of, if you
Yeah.
want to think about it that way.
Yeah.
Because they're flat and they're easier to make,
there's I think depending on some of the more crazy input methods on arcades, a light gun is pretty quick to just get another one.
The technology is cheap too. Like that's why that came home so fast, like that's why the NES even had like multiple guns. Same thing with the Genesis, and I think even the Master System had some guns. But
And the Super Nintendo bazooka.
I love that they were like, "What's bigger than a gun?
Yeah.
What's more super than a gun?" That's actually like pretty American of them, though. If you haven't played Yoshi Safari, you should because it's pretty good. What am I talking about? I'm just rattling off like
Light guns.
neurodivergent
Was
like
that-
video game facts.
Was that the last game we played?
No, there's one more, which is, actually Empire was the last game that we played because it came out chronologically last, which means it came out I think in 1984. It came out in 1985. So actually, that's pretty late in the game.
So 3 years after the first version came out, they converted?
5 years after Empire came out, and 2.5 years after Return of the Jedi came out.
Jesus.
So 2 years for the conversion.
Yeah, but in 1984, there was actually a Return of the Jedi arcade game, which is not a vector game, and is a sort of isometric, full color game that's operating much more like how most arcade games from the 80s look, with like lush color, a little bit more. It's like, it doesn't look like Super Nintendo, but it looks like NES. It looks like TurboGrafx. It's like NES, but with like a little more oomph. All the stuff that was out in the 80s. And this one was like over the top. It was a speeder bike game at first, and then there was like 2 levels of speeder bike.
I was like, what game are you talking about?
It kind of has like ski-free vibes. You're kind of like dodging trees. There's little Ewoks around that kind of like have different traps that you can trigger.
Yeah, instead of an abominable snowman, it's stormtroopers chasing you.
And but you can like knock the stormtroopers into the trees. You take damage without dying. It's a much more like dynamic and like, obviously there's much more complex mechanics at play than could be at play in a vector game. Just because of how it is. And then you evolve to like a version that has the walkers.
You even get a straight up victory scene.
Yeah, where you like arrive in the Ewok village each time. Yeah. And then in the third phase, though, you actually do the coolest thing I thought that the game does, where you do the final mission is going into the third Death Star, blowing it up, turning around, and leaving the first Death Star. That was, and as it's exploding. It's like going back to Star Fox.
I seem to recall. Did any of us beat that part?
I think you did.
No, I know that I was the first one to get there, but I think Davis got the furthest at the end because I didn't know there was the turn. Because when you turn around, you have to go back, and it's the exact same path, but it comes faster. And I just didn't remember a damn thing. I got immediately hit a wall. And died.
It has the same pitfall, like if you've ever played the Battletoads level that with the motorcycles.
Yeah,
it's kind of like that, that's hard about it, but definitely not that hard.
Like if you memorize it, it'd be easy.
Yeah.
But definitely, you know what? If anything, the being there in the moment, you're like, damn, that Lando can sure fly.
Yeah,
that sucked. That's not fun.
That game also, going back to the controls and how context matters for this stuff, because. I think a lot of people who play video games today, they're pretty cynical about games as art, I think. I feel like people, like gamers in general, compared to like movie viewers or book readers, are pretty self-centered about their experience. They don't really like talk too much. It's not that
Well, it's because you're playing it, so it's a personalized experience.
That's what I mean. Like, there's
compared to
not
a movie where you just watch.
Yeah, there's not a lot of intellectual discussion amongst casual players about like game mechanics and stuff outside of how it relates to your own experience playing the game. Like a lot of people can't remove themselves, I think, from their own experience and look at what the game is trying to do. And there's not a lot of that going on.
I think everyone's guilty of that. To some
Oh, of course. I
Yeah,
just think gamers in general are like a little bit and the reason I'm saying that is because there's a lot of like stuff happening right now, like in video games, like when you go on your Switch, right? Obviously the Switch is kind of a weird example because it actually can go out into handheld mode, but like people are playing Game Boy Advance games like Metroid Fusion or Golden Sun or some shit like that, and they're playing it on their television, and it's a very different experience to play a Game Boy Advance game on your television than it is to play it in your hands.
Sure.
And just a lot of like stuff like that to me really matters to experiencing the video game for what it is. And so, in the same way that we had the joystick issues with the Star Wars games that are the vector ones, like I feel like we missed the vector. So there's, I want to be very clear that we didn't quite get it, but we're trying to understand those things so that we can like fill that gap.
Yeah, this would be the same as if we were doing a podcast about the game Off-Road.
Yes.
Without acknowledging the arcade was 4 steering wheels.
Yeah, exactly.
But we were playing it on a Nintendo console with a controller. It's a vastly different experience.
Yeah, and along those ends, the Empire Strikes Back or the Return of the Jedi game does have a steering wheel, and so the steering and stuff is really kind of awkward because it's at an isometric angle when you're playing it on a main cabinet with a controller. But when you go into the cabinet and you sit and you're turning a thing, it's very much one-to-one. You're very much in control of exactly where you're going.
Yeah, it'd be like if you another modern example. If you did those games, if you go to like a Dave and Buster's, or whatever, there's always those games where you ride a motorcycle, and there's literally like you're riding the motorcycle.
Yeah.
You take that, you put it on a console, it loses
It's fun.
everything about it.
It's fun, but Super Hang-On is called Super Hang-On.
Because you're literally leaning 80 degrees to one angle to like go around a corner.
Yeah.
You just can't have that experience at home.
Yeah, and I mean those are all really extreme examples. But even going back to what we were saying, like,
But I mean, it's apt.
right. The reason I didn't want to play the paddle game is because we didn't have a paddle, and I don't think it was worth playing without the paddle because I couldn't even really make the controls make sense without it. Sure. And same thing with these other ones. These other ones were close enough because, they kind of work. They translate just because of the format that we have games now that use controllers, so we can kind of make it work. I can kind of cheese it. Obviously, but the game feel is not accurate. Later, when we go further, part of my sort of interest in this as a video game person is to really try and experience these in the same way that we're watching the old versions of the movies to try and get that cinema experience. We're going to be trying to play these games as authentically as possible. So a lot of the times we're going to try not to play the remakes. We're going to try and play the real versions of all these games. And so that's kind of where we're at here. This is kind of the only one where we're really not going to be able to see how the games are, in their natural habitats. But
Yeah, I guess going forward, we have all of the systems.
well, I mean, in the 90s, there's still more Star Wars
all the
arcade
home
games.
consoles and PC stuff.
There's still a few Star Wars arcade games that come out.
Yeah.
But one of them came out on Sega CD, and Sega CD and the arcade have a little bit more parity to each other than the Atari. And then there's also the Star Wars Trilogy arcade game that you were talking about earlier.
That's my absolute favorite game.
If I could buy one video game cabinet,
That's the one.
I wouldn't even mind buying the stand-up one. The sit-down one is the coolest thing ever, but I have a pretty small apartment, and I would play the one where one of the challenges is fighting Darth Vader, and one of the challenges is fighting Boba Fett.
Yeah,
that
with
game.
the lightsaber.
Yeah, that one. That's the one.
If I could buy one, I saw this one that's like it's like a bike that's a plane.
Oh, man,
it's in
I love
Japanese.
that
It's
game.
like a Ghibli something. That would be, if I could have any one, it would be that. If I could have two, it'd be the Star Wars one.
That's so funny, and I know exactly what you're talking about. Anyway,
Or the pod racing one was good. You were in the pod. You were
forgot
in
about
the
that.
pod.
yeah, there's a really
good stuff.
Okay, there's a couple good pod racer games out there.
That's
I'll tell you-
honestly
Crazy.
tell
I
you
hate
what.
the prequels. I hate the pod racing scene.
But those
I
games-
fuck with
yes,
pod racing.
yes.
The game.
with you.
like the game and just the concept. Like it's such
It
a
is so
good-
gamified.
It's such
Yeah.
a tight Star Wars idea that there's like a crazy high speed sport. it's just like, I don't know.
Which of us is going to take home the Bunta Eve Classic Cup this
What's
year?
that guy named Shito?
Shitto, Glup Shitto. No, I'll tell you what. If it's coming, I'm very good at those games. I will ball y'all up. I have to unlock my legacy skill. It takes me like 1 to 2 hours. But once I get there,
Download complete.
Yeah, once I get there.
I mean, I'm down. We'll do
That echo through
Little
the
echo,
entire,
yeah.
That echoed through the entire office. My like joy of victory.
I think like that would be one to maybe even stream at some point. Like
Yes.
something there.
We
do
can have like a
do a
tournament.
little
Yeah.
tournament or like something. That'd be really fun.
That's like part of it too. Like, dude, okay, N64 games, right? N64 has 4 controller ports. That is bold. That is like a statement by Nintendo that's like, get your fucking friends and play some goddamn video games. Before that, you had to buy a thing. You're like, oh, you want to play with some friends? $80. They were like, no, 4 in there, 4 on the screen. We can do this now. Let's fucking do it. And it's just so awesome to have some of those like those pod racing games and all those other games be like that. And the PS2 one is just as good, baby. Have you played that one?
I don't
I
think
played
I
a
played
little
the
bit.
PS2.
If
You made me play it.
Yeah.
And it was great. It was like they
There's
like
a-
moved the story forward.
Yeah, there's a great port of it on
Wait, is that the
Pokemon
one where
Gold
we
and
learned about
Silver
Shito?
of
Glup Shitto. I don't think so.
Is that the one where we were looking at the different characters
No,
at
Isn't
your
Glup
house?
Shitto
Oh, no.
a made up
No.
name
Okay, no.
From
from
100
Simpsons or whatever about like a
Glup Shitto is a bit.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
a bunch of dudes in the
The
original
one guy
game.
literally looks like a piece of crap. Like
There-
he just looks like a
Dudbolt,
turd man.
There's Dudbolt. There's Team Topagales. There's a bunch of guys, dude. Mars Guo, Ben Quadraneros.
I love that you know the names, and I can imagine the guy in my head. I'm like guy who looks like shit, the guy who looks like he melted, the stick figure guy,
That
the guy who looks
yeah.
like
the guy who crashes into the piece of rock. And, yeah. Neva Key, the guy with no couplers.
I love that you know the names. That's amazing.
Listen. When we get to the part of Star Wars that I was a kid for, it's going to be like how somehow like there's an entire generation of 90s kids that know like every dinosaur's scientific name. You know that?
Sure,
You know
sure.
those kids? That's me, but with Glup Shitto, okay?
yeah.
So this is just sort of like a soft preview of this, just to give you guys some expectations, because the way like it feels like we're very close to Heir to the Empire, because Lando, the last Lando book is like the last book before Heir to the Empire.
In the Insider,
We're already there.
they're talking about it.
We're about to like today, like the one that we're putting out with this episode is like bang, the book is out.
It's
Yeah.
it's crazy. I almost feel like we're too far into the. I was like, we are 5 years ahead of
No,
where
you don't
we're
have
at
to feel.
in the
You don't have
books.
to feel bad, because the ones who are going to feel it ahead are only the patrons. When you are a listener of the public show, the episodes come out.
We call it the Jedi experience because it's sort of like precognition.
Right,
You
right,
sort of-
right.
Yeah. And we're gonna stick with that forever. No, next season, as I'm calling it, like I'm saying, season 1 of our show is until we get to Heir to the Empire, and then Heir to the Empire is like that first big, like Del Rey. It's like a new age.
It's like our Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah,
And
the
is season 3 like prequels?
not even close.
Season 3 is like
Season 3 is literally
late 90s Star
no.
Wars.
You know what's the Heir to the Empire of season 3?
What?
Shadows of the Empire. Yeah, that's how many books there are. Yeah, yes, that's how different it becomes. Yeah, so it's going to be longer than season 1, just to give you an idea. But in season 1,
They ordered more. There's 26
so-
episodes now.
I'm so hype.
it becomes
I love
a
Star
lot
Wars
slower.
again, just so purely, so genuinely.
Strangely enough, that's also when it becomes like everything is connected.
Yes.
Like right now-
the first time they even try.
Yeah, right now it's like whatever, and then suddenly every book means something in a way that you're like, oh,
We're on the cusp.
Okay.
We're on the cusp, you guys. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
But just to give you an idea, okay, so
in like a fun way.
no, yeah, 100%. There's the Star Cave of Thunboka, right? We have the next like real book club episode that we're going to do is the newspaper strips, which is the rest of the newspaper strips.
Oh God! You know what? Let's do it.
We're gonna no, we're
I mean,
going
we
to do
have
it.
to,
We're-
so.
We have to do it. We're gonna do it. Yeah. Then we're gonna do one more comics. Then we're watching.
Is that the wrap up through Return of the Jedi?
There's two more. There's
I'm
two
so-
more volumes of comics.
I'm so hyped for those.
5 and 6, and this is gonna be 5.
Okay.
And then Caravan of Courage, the movie.
Dude, no.
Then
I forgot that name.
then Battle for Endor, the movie.
Oh no.
Hey,
Then
Battle
Droid.
for Endor.
I'm not here for droids.
The Ewoks movies are fun.
The Ewoks movies are fun.
And they're
droids,
short.
Droids is rough.
Droids,
dude.
the show is we're gonna do two droids. There's gonna be 2 droids. We're gonna do droids.
Yeah, C-3PO and R2-D2.
There's 2 seasons of droids.
If you went like da 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 da, God, but his left.
Yeah.
We're doing 2 seasons of droids. I gotta find this. Oh, okay.
Shout out to podcast listeners. There's a lot of physical comedy involved in that bit.
Yeah,
you missed all of it.
Yeah, sign up for the non-existent $100 Patreon tier, and we'll go back and film classic moments from the podcast for you. No, okay.
We use the Switch 2 camera.
Yeah, I was reading the wrong schedule. The next thing that's going to happen is you're going to get an Inside the Insider collection. Speaking of the Inside the Insider, we're going to get number 4 through 6, so that's fun. Then we're going to do the newspaper strips, which is going to be 2 episodes, obviously, because those things are fucking long. Then we're going to do the original Marvel Years Volume 5, like I said, which is also going to be 2 episodes because those shits are fucking long. Then we're going to do the movies. There's going to be a Q&A in there. The movies are going to be 1-2 punch. Then we're going to do Inside this Insider Collection 3. Then we're going to do droids. 2 like entire seasons. Then we're going to do a show. Then we're going to do a season. Then we're going to do a show. Then the final comics, and then Ewoks the show, and then
Wait, what? There's
I
an
don't
Ewok
remember
show?
Ewoks the show.
yeah, which is written by Paul Dini. Get ready.
What?
Yeah,
So it's great.
I don't know. Haven't seen it.
Expectations? Space high.
Then Inside the Insider.
Space high.
Then
You
Inside the
thought Sky
Insider.
High was high.
Space
high.
Yeah.
Yeah, Inside the Insider Collection 4 gets us to Inside the Insider 12, which we just recorded.
I can't wait to the fact that we literally are going to be talking about stuff that we are not even remotely close to covering.
Yeah, Ewok Season 2, then it's the watch-alongs, then it's Droids and Ewoks comics, and then we're in March of next year, and then Heir to the Empire happens.
Droid and Ewoks comics, I must stress. None of the droid stuff am I looking forward to.
Droids and Ewoks
It's
is
just
like
not great.
The next chunk of our lives is going to be Droids and Ewoks.
Come, suffer with me.
Take off your entertainment hat and put on your archaeological, what does this tell us about the state of children's television
I think you guys
in
are
the
gonna
80s?
I think you guys are going to be surprised by how good it all is.
No, I won't.
Also, I just miss
I remember.
animation because
I think it's going to be
It's nice to look
I think
at.
it's going to be quite great, and as a Patreon member, you're going to get some serious watch along content. Like if you thought that this was interesting, this video game thing where you get to see us play all these games, we're also going to do all the shows. Like we're going to do every
I will be
episode.
groaning through most of it.
you're going to be here with us.
Yeah. Like this is a slow burn podcast, like I guess, right? Like our upload schedule hasn't been the most regular all the time, but it's because man,
We're doing it for fun.
yeah, we're number one, we're doing it for fun, but second, we're fucking getting to it. Like we're going to do a lot of Star Wars stuff, and this like
We're doing all of it.
Like once we've gone to like episode 50 or so, like the complexity level of this is just about to go off the charts, and we're at the point where authors of the books are now alive, which is exciting. So we can actually
I
talk.
would love to talk to
Yeah,
some
we
of
can
them.
actually talk to people. Hopefully, we can get Big TZ.
That would be the greatest achievement. Having met the man exactly one time. Seemed like a chill dude.
Hold on, Tim. We need you. In
I would love him. Yeah,
next
but
year.
I think we can safely say that we've definitely been in contact with a few of them.
Definitely, like it's actually something that we're actually doing. So just get ready for it. It's just that we're in a weird part of this podcast that later, when we're knee deep in Del Rey paperbacks, you're going to be glad that we did all this because you're going to have the context for it. And I know it's dumb and I know it's weird, but actually, like this show is going to be so like this show evolves all the time. Losers, get ready. Get ready. Get ready.
So aggressive.
Get ready. For this is going to be the definitive Star Wars podcast one day.
When the aliens dig up the bones after the corporate wars.
In 2040, when we get to the new canon,
2040.
we can start the new canon book club again.
Ironically,
Yeah.
by the time
It'll
we
be the old canon. Yeah.
I think it's hilarious that by the time we get to Heir to the Empire, based on the schedule you just gave us, we'll probably have information on that like insane new Filoni movie with Thrawn and stuff, which is hilarious to me.
Mandalorian and Grogu or whatever it's called.
Yeah, apparently that leads into whatever they're doing with
another
Ahsoka season 2 and Thrawn.
And Star Wars Starfighter.
I guess Filoni's new trilogy is it's like a Thrawn thing. So
It's interesting, right? Like,
yeah.
The
He's
synchronicity.
making a trilogy of movies.
We'll
Yes.
see. He's trying
Apparently
to make
it's
the
on
next
the
round.
list.
Theaters.
I think
his plan is he's trying to get numbers on those.
Yeah, I guess the end of season 2 of Ahsoka, or season 1 of Ahsoka, is his like setup for whatever, like Grogu. It's all leading to. If you watched Mandalorian, I know like we kind of fell off on that, but if you watched, it's leading to a Thrawn something. Like everything is Thrawn focused.
Ahsoka is literally like, there's an alternate universe, there's another galaxy, there's Admiral Thrawn.
Another time.
Space whales
It
are
doesn't
here.
even matter, but also Thrawn is back.
Can you imagine if when we hit the Heir to the Empire episode of our show that it's announced like the Filoni movie drops and it's like recanonizes the old canon somehow through
It's
multiverse?
definitely bringing back. Again, I don't think it makes any sense because it's like taking place during the time period between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. And if it's such a major, if it's like Thrawn is the like greatest threat to the not mentioned at all in that film, it's a little weird.
What if I'm telling you, like, what if it wipes out fucking the sequels? Like, what if it really does like retcon?
I mean, it can't because they're making a whole Rey Jedi Academy series.
Right, but what I mean is like,
You're saying it makes an alt timeline?
yeah, like have you ever, the Crisis?
I don't think it's ever happening.
Like the Crisis was
But-
like, well, these guys are on this Earth and these guys are on this Earth, so they don't really.
I mean, they're about to do it with Marvel, so maybe if it
They
works
already
there.
have done it with Marvel so hard that my head is spinning.
yeah, they did with X-Men, Days of
Yeah.
Future Past and stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, like the MCU is
Sure,
about
sure.
to
Like,
is, like
yeah.
doing it.
yeah.
So
I just
we'll see how it
don't
goes.
think they're going to do it to Star Wars. But
The Emperor definitely walked into his orrery of realities and saw different moments in the Star Wars timeline.
you're not wrong. They definitely have that, like,
and that was definitely Filoni's like big moment.
sure, but there's no way they're going to be like,
That was like the last threads of the space whale shit that happened had to do with that.
I mean, literally in Ahsoka, they do that. She goes into that place and has a whole episode with her and straight up Hayden Christensen. And it's like Darth Vader training her again.
Yeah, seems to be the main thing that Filoni cares about. Is that
I think he's trying to expand the Force into, like, I don't know that we're going to, we'll see.
I have spoken like about my thoughts on him as a storyteller and stuff, so I don't put a lot of stock there. But between like Andor, which completely blew me out of the water,
Yeah.
and even like
Still gotta watch that.
Thunderbolts, which I just saw that I really liked, I'm like, okay, maybe like we'll see. There can be some more.
Sure.
I don't want to say like adult, but like serious storytelling, a little bit more something, and that might make me more interested.
They're realizing
right now,
we
like
want quality,
Rey
yeah.
trilogy or like a Filoni trilogy is just not. It's just not my.
Like Rey
bag.
trilogy is like, I have like zero like positive or negative for, because it's such a blank slate of nothing. Like at this point, like that it's clear that they're trying to like step out. Like I don't imagine that it's going to have a lot to do with anything that happened in the sequel trilogy. Like that would be my hope for that. So I have like positive and negative as cancels each other out for that one.
We're all just looking for a good movie at
Yeah,
the end of the
like
day. And
digging-
I don't
digging-
care what it is.
Going back to the well of this like Rebels shit, I'm like I know that there's an echelon of Star Wars fans. There's like a sector that is very happy with this. Like people who are slightly younger than me who kind of grew up with these stories.
Sure.
It's like how Teen Titans kids exist, and I just like I know the Teen Titans and I love the Teen Titans, but it's like not the same Teen Titans that you love, like child who watched the TV show.
Well,
And
that's
it's-
because there were 2 Teen Titans shows.
no, but not even
Yeah.
that. I'm just saying, like, I read the goddamn comic books.
Oh, right,
that's
right,
a totally
right,
other
yeah.
set of Teen Titans.
Vastly, you're
Yeah.
right, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Is like, I think we're going to start to get to that point with Star Wars. Which, if you go back,
I mean, we're already there.
yeah. If you go all the way back to the new canon book club
We've
that
been
we
there
were
like
doing,
now with 3 times with each.
Yeah,
different
with
trilogy.
each new
and
trilogy,
I think I even talked about it in here. Getting a little bit more loose with the canon on Star Wars to me is like a really good idea, and softening the idea that we're trying to make another Marvel that's like with Princess Leia in it. Like, let's forget about that. Let's just try and do Star Wars how Star Wars does, right? And what Star Wars is tapestry to me looks like from our sort of stunted, old-fashioned perspective and the extended knowledge that I have just living through those decades, it seems to me that Star Wars is kind of whatever you need it to be, and that you don't really worry too much.
That's the brilliance of Andor.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You just kind of
Star Wars
worry
really
too
is
much.
the friends.
You don't really.
We made along your
What I
way.
mean is, you don't really need to worry too much about
Thanks for watching.
what happened before. Look at characters like Lando. This shit is canon as much as anything else. Bollocks and Blue Max are in the goddamn character guide next to characters that literally cancel them out in like the story of Han Solo. It doesn't fucking matter. Nobody cares. Nobody's reading Star Wars like that. Nobody has ever read Star Wars like that. And the only reason that people like the Filoni stuff is because it's still continuous. You know what I mean? Like,
Honestly, yeah. Like, and I think because we chose Star Wars and we're seeing it on every medium, it's not a Star Wars universe. It's a Star Wars multiverse. Like, it already just in itself,
It's a
the same
pastiche.
stories
Yeah.
across mediums, and like doing it this way does, and having like lighter canon in your head and being a little bit more nimble that way is good. So hopefully they just do that with
it kind of like, it's weird, right? Like, I used to kind of be like going back to something like The Last Jedi, which is like sort of like, for one type of fan, the best part of the sequels, and for one type of fan, the worst part of the sequels. Like, I think it's because Rian Johnson was on the old canon book club. Like, dude was like, I think did what all the directors do, right? Is go back and, or, when you're a comic book writer and you're about to take over Spider-Man, or you're about to take over X-Men, or you're about to take over Batman or whatever, and you need to know, or Superman, and you need to know the sort of context of it a little bit. You can sort of see.
Where did we come from?
But
Where'd
what I
we
mean
go?
is, what I mean is, like, you can sort of see, like,
Where'd you come from, Cotton Eye Joe?
you can see how one way to take Star Wars is to apply it to the current sort of situation, right? Like, millennials are let down by their parents' generation. Millennials are sort of like feeling like they ended up being the slaves to the boomers in like society, right? Like they're like a working class that the boomers created to be their valets, kind of, is like the sort of millennial sort of pessimistic reading, right? And I feel like Rian Johnson, who is a millennial, I think, I believe, or is like, on the young end of Gen X.
Like a Zennial vibe.
Yeah. Like, I think he was trying to take Star Wars in that direction and kind of be like, hey, look at Rey and Kylo, the sons and daughters. Like, they all have these expectations put on them from a world that doesn't exist anymore, and they want to do it their own way, and they broke the cycle, and now they're going to do something different, and like,
Genuinely, that's the one thing I loved about Last Jedi, and I was looking forward to the like, it's gonna get crazy in the third movie, and then they were like, "No, bitch,
yeah,
the old people are back." And I was
Just
like,
kidding.
It did get crazy.
That's
but
what happened in
a
real life,
different
too.
way.
Yeah, that's what happened in real life too.
Speaking of the big
Somehow the Emperor returned.
yeah, the big controversy right now is if you, I know none of us have seen Andor season 2 yet.
Yeah.
but apparently Andor season 2, that's like. They're doing real world things, and people are like, "Not in my Star Wars."
Right. Yeah.
My
The fall
favorite-
of fascism, fighting fascism.
The
no
best
way.
comment I saw online was I was like, Darth Vader would never approve of this. The Empire shouldn't be doing these things. I guess because like
What are they doing?
there's a lot of like deportation metaphor and definitely like sexual assault metaphor, like not even metaphors, like actual that stuff happening in Star Wars, and it's Imperial officers being like, bad guys. And so they're like,
What?
my Imperials would never. It's like Darth Vader, the man who murdered literal kids, like would suddenly
Before
he's
he was
like,
on it?
he's like, you know what? Children, like killing kids fine. Like sexual assault, not cool. Empire.
Also, he's like a gaslighting, like him as Anakin Skywalker is also highly problematic, even during his like
He's
Jedi
a horrible.
days.
He's a horrible boyfriend.
It's like weird.
yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that's interesting to see that you're exactly right that like people just interpret things differently the way they want to like meet their expectations of things. And I love the idea that some people just are like, look, the Empire's bad, but they're not like evil. It's like, what the hell have you been watching?
They are, and also it's
they are.
It feels
What?
like when
What?
when people from European countries weigh in when I because I'm very vocal online about.
What about all the stuff in Andor season 1 that also ties into like
Honestly, truly, I believe.
policing and everything? Like,
different climate?
is
I
it just
believe-
like people don't know?
Different
No, I
climate.
think people genuinely right now are starting to watch Andor for the first time.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the people who love Star, because when Andor first came out,
Only we
it
liked
was
it,
the
yeah.
the least viewed of all the Star Wars media.
Only like people who feel about Star Wars a little bit more that it's like a canvas for whatever were even willing to watch
Yeah, I
something
think
like
people
Andor.
are caught up in this weird like, well, they're laser sword samurai and they have a code, even if the bad ones. And I was like, I don't think we
not s-
understood the same
Yeah.
concept of what we were watching.
And it's funny, like people from Europe, right? Like there was like, because I'm very vocal about my sort of like leftist, sort of extremely progressive opinions, right? On the internet, you know, I'm not insufferable about it, but I just am. I feel like I'm pretty informative. Like I have a pretty.
You love a good fight. Let's be honest.
Well, I don't do it so much anymore where I fight, but like just when I retweet something that's like really stupid that's happening in politics or something that I'm trying to raise awareness about, people from Europe come in and they go, you know, can't you just like vote XYZ, yada yada yada? And I say things like, my city has the same amount of people in it as your country. You know what I mean? So you look at it and you think it's simple, but you realize at the scale that America's operating at, so much is happening that there's no way that anybody can know about all of it. And that's literally what Andor is about how fascism functions as a result
on a ground level.
How fascism functions because so many people just have to do their shit and nobody has time to stop and think about what's going on or what they're doing. And it's only the audience who sees the injustice of the imperial prison system or whatever else thing. You know, I don't want to talk about season 2. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, but like the idea that there wouldn't be an imperial officer somewhere using his position of power to like get ladies
It's
is
absolutely
what would happen.
Absolutely hallmark of fascism.
Yeah.
You think
Have we
Vader's
read
like Santa
books where that
Claus?
happens?
Yeah, sure. I
There's like
think
the Hera book, right? Like, or didn't we read one
Soldiers
in
and
the new
officers?
canon where they like,
yeah, I genuinely
and then she ended up murdering officers, but like,
I
soldiers?
genuinely believe that a lot of the like online personas in the Star Wars community are one, young, and two, they grew up with like
Naivety.
the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s version of like Filoni Star Wars,
Yeah.
which is it's it's shows with some adult concepts but made for kids.
And the
Instead of
late
the
90s
reverse.
and the late 90s, early 2000s version of America. Like,
Sure.
we watched different shows than those kids. We had a different opinion of our country. Like, hippies raised us. Like, they are like
Yeah.
9/11 babies. They think Muslim people are evil inherently somehow, like because of media. Like it's a horrible situation. But the idea that miscarriages of office don't happen, like soldiers are the fucking literature's rapists. Like they are history's rapists. They are the guys that invented that shit almost.
Just
like,
go read any news about what's going on in Ukraine. Just
Yeah.
take some time.
yeah.
Not great.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I don't know. Kind of interesting to look at it from that perspective. But yeah, Star Wars video games, very cool. We have a lot of Star Wars stuff coming up.
Nice circle back.
I'm just
It's a
gotta get us out of here.
segue. There's a light speed.
Star Wars video games, very cool. We had a good time. You should look at the context of stuff when you assess
That's
it.
what we did with these games. The games are not, by modern standards, they're crap.
You don't matter.
But if you look back at them, it's fascinating
Yeah.
to see like how cool they were.
Your opinion of how much fun playing a game from the 70s is going to be for you, somebody from the 2020s, is not interesting or important. Just try and get on its level. Go see what it's about. Try and learn about people who played video games in the 80s. Try and understand what this was like as a Star Wars fan. Try and imagine what it's like. Like, I encourage you, if you're listening to this, to like pirate these games because there's no other way to play them. Like, unless you have if you have a copy of Star Wars Rogue Squadron 3 Rebel Strike for the GameCube, you can play all the arcade games on there if you get the passwords. But other than that, there's really not a super easy way to play any of these besides getting yourself an Atari. So I do recommend just at least throwing on some long play footage or some capture footage of these games.
There's got to be some ROMs out there for sure.
Or go watch the video on our channel just to get an idea of what these games are like, because really fucking interesting like era in video games that is like kind of like the proto-verse of video games almost. Like it's really like a different landscape. Literally the entire ecosystem of video games and everybody who made them died and then another one came. So like this is Star Wars through an entire other guard of video game people then came back and did it in the next couple years. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back soon with an episode, like I said, about newspaper strips, and also an Inside the Insider collection coming soon. Please subscribe to our Patreon if you like this show. We're really trying to be ambitious with it. It's just got a long runway, and we want to do it right. So if you are starting to see the momentum pick up and you're getting excited about it, and you ask me about when I'm going to do the zombie trooper shit from the last year and a half of the fucking Star Wars canon, it's not going to be for a while. But the more support we have, the more we're going to do the show. So please head over to patreon.com/SWOCBC to support us, watch our content, have a good time, talk about Star Wars with people on the Patreon. It's a good time. You get study guides and reading guides for all the books. It's a good thing. I'll let the robot repeat it to you again after this. Thank you guys for listening. I love you. Goodbye. May the Force be with you. Bye.
Always.
The Star Wars Old Canon Book Club is made possible by contributions from our listeners at patreon.com/SWOCBC. Thank you for your support. This month's Patreon Masters of the Force are Ian Baronade, Trevor Isom, Patrick Rowland, Matt Wars 56, Amy W., Jazz Owl, Peacetime Mando, and Metroid Mike. Thanks for listening. We'll be back soon with a discussion about our next selection, Star Wars, The Newspaper Strips, Volume 2, from Marvel Comics. This episode was edited by Alex Del Campo and Alex Fasciani. The theme song is Venus, The Bringer of Peace by Gustav Holst, performed by the U.S. Air Force Heritage of America Band. Original show art by Jackie Whistler. See you next time.